The words Apocrypha and Deuterocanonical books are often used interchangeably, but there are differences. The term Deuterocanonical means second canon. These books were recognized later than other books, but were still approved to be in the Bible. They were included in the Greek Septuagint, which was the scriptures most commonly used by Jews outside Palestine in Jesus' time, including those in the early Christian church. They were affirmed as scripture by early Christians and considered canonical for over 1,000 years before the Protestant Revolt. They are still included in the Catholic and Orthodox Bibles. Examples of deuterocanonical books include Tobit, Judith, and Maccabees. The online etymology dictionary tells us that Apocrypha is a late 14th century term, from Greek apokryphos, hidden, obscure, hard to understand, thus, books of unknown authorship. In the 1580s, it came to mean of doubtful authenticity. The non-biblical sense of writing of doubtful authorship or authenticity is from 1735. The modern usage of apocrypha as implying dubious or questionable authority is a Protestant innovation and not necessarily consistent with how these books were viewed for much of Christian history. Martin Luther labeled the Deuterocanonical books as apocryphal. As Luther was splitting from Roman Catholic tradition and creating his own theology, he determined what constituted scriptural authority. In evaluating the existing books of the Catholic Bible, Luther determined that the Deuterocanonical works, which were accepted by Catholics and Orthodox but originally written in Greek rather than Hebrew, lacked divine authority. By classifying them as apocryphal in the sense of spurious or dubious, the prophet Martin Luther was able to demote these books, which were eventually removed from the Protestant scriptural canon. So much for scripture alone from this hypocrite. These books were not considered part of the Hebrew canon of Scripture. They were not included in the Protestant Bible. They were included in the Catholic Bible at the Council of Trent in the mid-1500s, primarily in response to the Protestant Reformation. They include some practices that are inconsistent with Scripture's teachings. Examples include 1 and 2 Esdras and the Prayer of Manasseh. Several reasons the Deuterocanonical books were rejected by Protestants. 1. They were not in the original Hebrew canon. The Jews of Jesus' time did not accept them as scripture. 2. Their origins and authorship were disputed or uncertain. If divinely inspired, their history should not be obscure. 3. Some teachings in these books seem to contradict or lack consistency with the rest of Scripture. 4. These books were not preached or referenced much in the early church. Little evidence early Christians saw them as scripturally authoritative. 5. Including them undermined the Protestant doctrine of sola scriptura, Scripture alone. If their authority was questionable, they should not inform doctrine. In contrast, reasons Catholics did accept these books. 1. They were in the Septuagint, quoted by Jesus and early Christians, suggesting scriptural authority. 2. They were considered scriptural for over 1,000 years before the Reformation. Historical tradition affirmed their inspiration. 3. Certain books like Maccabees provide a historical context for the time period between the Testaments. 4. The Church has authority to determine the canon, not individuals like Luther. Their decisions represent divine guidance. 5. No evidence early Christians wholly rejected these books. Their authority was accepted, then disputed by heretics like Luther. Why remove them when the Deuterocanonical books were accepted as scripture for over a millennium? Apocrypha originated as a polemical term to justify removing Bible texts that did not align with Protestant theology. Ideas in these books challenged Protestant doctrines. 1. 2 Maccabees supports prayer for the dead and intercession of saints, contrary to Protestant rejection of these practices. 2. Wisdom and Ecclesiasticus teach free will in moral choices rather than the strict predestination some reformers endorsed. 3. Additions to Daniel and Esther, according to Protestants, endorsed the use of magic and prayer to angels, contrary to the Protestant focus on prayer to God alone. 4. Certain books provided historical context for the intertestamental period, suggesting more continuity between the Old and New Covenants than some Protestant theology allowed. 5. The books affirmed the authority and continuity of ecclesiastical tradition, contrary to the Protestant claim that Scripture alone should guide faith and doctrine. While the Deuterocanonical books did not inherently contradict Christian doctrine, as evidenced by their long acceptance in Catholic and Orthodox tradition, aspects of them did pose challenges to characteristically Protestant doctrines that developed in the 16th century. By classifying them as Apocrypha, Reformers were able to exclude them from biblical authority and sidestep tensions they posed to Protestant theology. The Catholic Church accepts the Deuterocanonical books, including the additions to Daniel and Esther, as part of the inspired scriptures. However, it is important to note that the Catholic Church does not interpret these additions as endorsing the use of magic or prayer to angels. The Book of Daniel, including its deuterocanonical portions, presents Daniel as a faithful servant of God, who prays to God alone. The additions to Esther and Daniel contain historical and traditional elements that are not devoid of historical value. While the Catholic Church accepts these books as inspired, it does not endorse any teachings that contradict the focus on prayer to God alone. This article is available on the Coffee page linked in the description. If you like this concise content by Lloyd de Jong, please subscribe on Coffee for more and support more of this work there. Here on YouTube, please like the content with a thumbs up, share it and subscribe to the channel.